All right, Rob, well, there's only one place to start, really, and that's Anfield from the weekend. What did you make of it? It was 10 minutes from title race being over, and suddenly we're all talking about it being back on. What was your sort of assessment of the game?
I mean, yeah, probably just that, really. After Arsenal beat Sunderland on Saturday, you kind of assumed that City had to win. I thought that City started really well. Better team in the first half, but they did that thing that they've been doing for a few weeks now, that they just dropped off after half time. And Liverpool were obviously the better team after half time, and I thought took a deserved lead. What I can't understand after that goal is that Liverpool then sort of retreat onto the edge of their own penalty area, and then they give City the chance to do what they want to do, which is have those passages of possession around the opposition box. And twice they find ways in behind Liverpool. Obviously, the first one is great anticipation from Bernardo Silva. The second is a penalty. I'm not sure there's any complaints, really. I'm not really sure what Alisson was doing all the way out there trying to clatter Núñez. And then you're right. I think at 85 minutes with Liverpool leading 1-0, Arsenal are 9 points clear, and the title race is probably getting to the stage where it's over. By the end of the game, it's 2-1. The City have won the gap down to 6 points. I think it's interesting that this week that City will play first against Fulham on Wednesday. Chance to cut the gap to 3 points, and then Arsenal have got to go and do it all again at Brentford on Thursday. So it's it does feel again like one of those little momentum switches. Whether it has any kind of meaningful effect on the title race going forward, we'll know by this time next week. But definitely a good day for City.
I was at the Arsenal game on Saturday, and I have to say it felt quite routine for them in a way that it hasn't of late, particularly at home. And they definitely felt a sense of finally taking an opportunity to put maximum pressure on City. They've had a couple of games recently where they could have opened up an advantage playing first or taking advantage of City dropping points and not quite really kind of rammed it home. But I think when they were leaving the ground at the Emirates on Saturday night, 9 points clear, the biggest lead they've had in 20 years since they last won the league in 2004. I think they really felt they turned the screw on City. So in that context, how much of a blow do you think it will be, or how much of a boost, I suppose, from City's perspective will it be that they've not only responded to that, but they've done it in the way that they did it at the venue where they did it, where they've obviously not won, or they won 1 in 22 league visits?
Yeah, I can't imagine that the Arsenal players were sort of crowded round a TV on Sunday watching the game, because that's not what they tend to do these days. But you can imagine that when they saw the result, that maybe the wind was taken out of their sails a little bit, because there's no getting away from the fact that once you do that job against Sunderland on Saturday, you go away thinking that there's probably a decent chance that City don't win that game. They just historically don't win at Anfield anyway. They're not playing particularly well as well. So those kind of factors together, I imagine if you're Arteta and those Arsenal players on Saturday night sat with your Chinese after a job well done, that you're probably thinking, there's a good chance that we could be 9 points clear on Sunday night, and almost not over the line, but getting towards the point where you start thinking we are actually going to do this. So it does feel like a little bit of a shift in that sense. And also for what it does to Arsenal, it does the opposite to Man City. And I think even after the game, Bernardo Silva said that he thought that if it was 9 points, that would be pretty much done and dusted. And now suddenly it's not. City have still got to go and do that job against Fulham on Wednesday, but on Wednesday night, we could be talking about a gap that's only 3 points, and City will feel that they're right back in it. What happens now is quite interesting, because I was just looking at the fixtures going ahead now. That Arsenal in the next 4 games have got Wolves, Tottenham, Chelsea, Brighton after that Brentford game. City after they play Fulham. I've got Newcastle, Leeds, Forest, West Ham. I think you probably agree that City have got an easier run. It does feel like if anything's going to happen in this title race, if we're going to get to a point where that game between City and Arsenal at the Etihad, I think it's scheduled for April the 18th. I'm sure it'll get moved, but late in April, say, if we're going to get to that game with City still in touching distance, it does feel like this next sort of 5-game run is going to be really, really pivotal. And I've said, I do feel a bit boring, because I've said the same things all the way through this season, that the one thing, Arsenal have probably got the best team. They've probably got the best squad. They've got one of the best managers in the world. The one thing that we don't know about Arsenal is if they can handle that mental pressure of winning a title. And I thought actually they deserved a lot of credit for what they did against Leeds, because that was a pressurised moment. They came through that. We are now in another pressurised moment with them heading to Brentford. And I suppose my question to you would be, you were at that Leeds game at Ellen Road. I thought that was a moment where Arsenal may slip up, and they didn't. And not only did they not, they went and won it really comfortably. Do you feel that Arsenal have got now that mental edge to get them through what is going to be a difficult little run now? Or for you, is there still a question mark about that?
I think there is still a question mark about it, because there has to be, because they haven't done it. I think there's a bit of revisionism around about the last sort of 3 seasons, the idea that they've kind of thrown it away every year. I don't think that's true. I think, in the second half of the year, a couple of years ago, I think they lost 1 game, and that was enough because City were just sort of, relentless. And obviously Liverpool had a fantastic start to the season last year. And I don't know, you just sort of feel as though that is the final question for this team to answer. Can they see it out? I think on Saturday, what we saw was kind of an example of their squad depth coming to the fore again. Several changes, no Saka, no Odegaard, so the captain and their best player not in the squad. And if you sort of wind the clock back a couple of years, the idea that they would go into a sort of must-win game without those two and win 3-0 and be pretty comfortable. Sunderland had first half they were banging the game, it has to be said, but second half they sort of moved up a gear and really just took the game away from them. If you'd sort of said, well, they could play like that without those two, I think says something for the evolution in the team. And you sort of feel as though when we talk about mentality, there's also the other aspect of that, of course, is maintaining levels of performance. And you sort of feel that if there are 2 or 3 who are not quite at it, then they've got now the strength in depth to be able to throw another 2 or 3 on who will be. And as I said all along, they've got the best team, they've got the best squad, they should win it. But I can understand why City will feel if they can just stay, in the rearview mirror and keep that Etihad game alive effectively. Then they'll feel they've got a chance of hunting them down and cranking up the pressure on them. Just because I've been in the stadium in the Emirates where, it's felt really tense. It's felt, you've got ex-players saying now or never to win the league, and when they're not winning, you can really sense it in the stands. And that's it. That was in January. So what's it going to be like if City are close in late March, early April? And remember, they had, the 1 year people talk about them throwing it away. They had an 8-point lead, albeit having played a game more at the beginning of April a few years ago. And that wasn't enough when Saliba got injured and they kind of ran out of steam. Now they are in a different position squad-wise. Are they in a different position mentally? That is the $1 million question. And the one other aspect of this, which I think we should mention, I'll throw this back to you, is the Carabao Cup final. And just how potentially that is not just about the cup final, it's about the league as well. Because if City kind of put Arsenal in their place in that final, then all the questions about psychological barriers and not being able to get over the line and where are the trophies to show for all the progress, all of those criticisms will resurface. And Arsenal are kind of in a bit of a no-win situation in that final for me, because I think if they win that competition, yes, it silences those doubters, but it doesn't mean it's going to be a successful year. If they win the Carabao Cup and they don't win anything else, I think the season's a disappointment for Arsenal. I mean, do you see the Carabao Cup the same way, that it's not just about that final? It's also, I guess, from City's side, a sort of validation of this new team that Guardiola's built, and the fact that they can feel as though they can end across the board as top dogs.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the City's result at Liverpool, keeping the title race alive, really puts a different emphasis now on that Carabao Cup final, because it's obviously going to have no bearing in terms of points on the title race. But I do think that whoever loses that game may feel it as quite a significant body blow. And I remember Sir Alex Ferguson talking in 1999, where United and Arsenal were battling it out for the Premier League title, and they had those FA Cup semi-finals. The first one was a draw and went to a replay. The second the replay, is decided by a really, really fine margin. Missed penalties, a wonder goal by Ryan Giggs. And United go on from there and not only win the FA Cup, but also the Premier League title and keep Arsenal at bay and then go on to win the Champions League. And I remember Sir Alex Ferguson talking after that season and saying that that was a really significant moment in the Premier League title race, because he felt that if Arsenal had gone on to win that game, got to an FA Cup final, that they would have probably gone on to win the Premier League title, and that United may have ended up with absolutely nothing. In the end, United win that game and go on to win the treble. We asked Pep about that after the Carabao Cup semi-final against Newcastle and said, he's had seasons before where it's all come down to a battle between two teams. It happened between Barcelona and Real Madrid when Jose was there in around 2011, I think. And also in England once when it was City and Liverpool for absolutely everything. And he tried to play it down a little bit and say, different competitions, it doesn't really matter. But then right at the end, he sort of says, but I'm really excited it's Arsenal in the Carabao Cup final. And there was a little glint in his eye that almost suggested that he knows that if he goes, or his City team go to Wembley and beat Arsenal, they're trying to end, a 6-year trophy drought.
Yeah.
The momentum will be with them between then and the end of the season. They've also got that game against Arsenal to come at the Etihad Stadium that I think that he thinks that if he can beat Arsenal in that final, that City will be if they're still right there in the title race, that they will be in a really, really strong position in the title race. It's probably why he's so desperate for Mark Gahey to play in that cup final, even though he knows that he shouldn't be able to and there's no chance that it's going to get changed. But he did make that point. I do think that the Carabao Cup final could have a really significant impact. And I probably agree with you, actually, that Arsenal, are in a bit of a lose-lose situation, because if they win that, it doesn't really affect what they're doing in the title race anyway, because they're still leaders. They need to win a trophy at some stage. And as you say, if they just win the Carabao Cup, people will look at that season and say, well, you probably should have won more. There's everything to gain for Man City, because it gets one over Arsenal at a really crucial stage of the title race. They've got Arsenal to come a month later at the Etihad, sort of end of April. I just think it's a really difficult situation for Arsenal, and there's everything to be gained for City and Pep Guardiola in that situation.
Yeah, I suppose just to finish off on that, Arsenal, there is this sort of doubt about silverware, simply, that they haven't been able to lift a trophy. And there's, I suppose, if we're talking about the psychological detriment that they could face if they lost it, we do have to talk about there being some sort of boost to them and giving them the confidence that they could kick on from there, and win it. But it wouldn't be mission accomplished. It would certainly not feel like that. I think it would be a sort of another step along the way. But obviously that game is middle of next month.